This is Rupture, a simple analog glitch circuit. It takes composite video as an input, which is this yellow RCA cable you can see here. The other end of it is connected to this camera, and it takes a composite video output, which is this red RCA cable, which is running into the CRT television that you're seeing me on now. This circuit basically corrupts and distorts the video signal in a lot of interesting and unpredictable ways. So you'll see some examples of this in a second, but yeah, for this reason it's recommended to output this signal directly to an analog CRT television, because this handles the corrupted signals best. I will try and show you some examples of how Rupture looks on different capture devices, just to give you some ideas. But yeah, it definitely looks best on a CRT television, as we will see. So just to introduce the controls on here. Currently, the power is not connected to the circuit, and the router segment, which is these two switches in the top left, are both set to the up position. So this means the left router switch connects the input to the start, the top and the bottom of the circuit, and the right router switch connects the output to the top and the bottom of the circuit. So right now both input and output are connected to the top, which means that it just passes the signal straight through unaffected. Same thing will happen if you switch them both to the bottom. But if one's top and one's bottom, then we'll get no signal now because the circuit is not powered. So let's start by switching both of the router switches to the top position and plugging in the power to see an example of the effect. So the other control to just be aware of is this regulator, power regulator control here, just to the right of the power plug. So this basically lets you choose between powering the circuit on a 5-volt supply, which is what we're doing right now. I'm just powering it from one of those USB wall warts, and then the USB to barrel plug cable. But also, if you are supplying it with a higher voltage, you can switch on the power regulator, which will reduce the power to the circuit to about 7 volts, which is what the original design was taking as power input. You can still switch this on when you're using 5 volts. It just means the circuit might be a little bit underpowered, but if it still looks okay, then that's fine. The only thing to be aware of is to never power it with more than 9 volts, especially when it's switched to the left on the 5-volt one, because that means there's no regulator, which means you could fry the IC by overpowering it. So just be aware of that. It's safe to switch on the regulator when you're giving it a low voltage. It's not safe to switch off the regulator when you're giving it a high voltage. Those are the input controls. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the glitch controls. So there are 4 knobs which control the glitch effects, and there are 6 switches. So the kind of default position to start in is all of the glitch knobs rotated as far as they can in the anti-clockwise position, and all of the switches in the up position. This is the default state. And now, as far as the effect goes, we've actually got something quite interesting to look at just in this default state. We can adjust these glitch potentiometers slightly to see a slight variation of this effect. So if you take the first one, rotate a little bit, you'll get this more grainy effect, and you even go a bit further through and you get a darker and more corrupted effect as that one goes around. in general with these glitch effects, you kind of start from left to right. So the left one is most likely to be the most dramatic, and then as you go on, you'll kind of fine tune it. So if we wanted to fine tune this kind of white effect, we'll go to the next one and rotate this one slightly. Here we see we're changing the grain slightly to a more kind of snowy effect. Then we can go over to the next one and change this one to see what that does. In this case, it takes off the effect, but in some cases it might change it slightly. Here we got a little bit of control over that effect. Take that a little further. Yeah, on this circuit there's quite a lot of chance involved in finding effects that you like. So yeah, playing around is the best way to find parts, find configurations. But I'll go through some of the more memorable ones here for you. So yeah, this is just some effects you can get with the router switched both in and out in the top position. Okay, so the next configuration I will show you is with the input set to the bottom of the circuit and the output set to the top. So this is kind of the main like default way that the signal was intended to pass through this circuit. This is how it was in the original design. It's only when I started playing around with different ins and outs that I discovered there's other configurations that are worth giving the option to control here. So on this configuration, we should get a pretty clean signal if you just rotate the leftmost glitch knob slightly and then start playing with the other ones. So in this case, the third one will give you this kind of invert effect, which is quite nice and can be combined with the other knobs to get slightly different variations of it. And then from here, we can try switching on one of these capacitor switches. So this, again, we start from the left and we work to the right. The leftmost switch is the lightest effect, and as they go on, they get heavier. So let's start with this, and you can see straight away that it adds some nice kind of color tones to the glitch. And then for a more intense effect, we can move on to the next switch. And you see that it changes it slightly, the look. Taking off the first one also will give us a slightly different take on it. One more capacitor switch down. And now we get into the realm of kind of black and white and quite washed out images. If I go one more across, we probably will lose the image altogether. Yeah, there you go. Taking off some of those other ones, does that make a difference? Not really. It's basically all corruption from here on out. So yeah, still there's some pretty nice patterns you can get out of this these modes, but I tend to not use the right capacitors so much. I find are a bit too heavy-handed. You can also put your own capacitor values in here for if you make this yourself. Maybe it'll be worth playing around with more of the smaller value capacitors if you like the look of these kind of color ones. Yeah. Okay. So that's some examples of the glitch effects on the default setting. Again, like there's a lot that you can get out of this, which I won't show you now because it's just from trial and error, experimenting with these four different knobs. But yeah, now finally I can show you the router position with both input and output set to the bottom. So this mode, I think, benefits the most from the capacitors. If I put one on now, we get, yeah, again, some nice colorful wiggly lines and quite a lot of control over where these lines meet. So this first glitch knob takes the effect on and off, all the way to the left keeps it on, and then the other ones control the kind of shape of that effect, as you can see here. And then add more capacitance, you get a slightly different variation of this. Yeah, as I said before, when you're powering it with 5 volts, you can always try switching the regulator to the other mode and see if it gives you something different that you like. Again, it's quite similar, but I quite like what you can do with this. And the final configuration which is possible with this router is the input set to up and the output set to down. This is the opposite of the intended or like default direction, and for the most part it's the least interesting, just black, mainly black and white, or mainly just black with a few squiggles. But if we engage some of the capacitor switches, we do get some effects that are nice to work with. The first 2 glitch knobs gives us a bit of control over this, and yeah, it's not so much processing the input video now, but it is generating some kind of cool effects. Yeah, so if you like this kind of abstract distortion, you can play around in this mode. But yeah, again, for the most part, most of the effects are in the down-up position. This is where you get anything from subtle kind of color tints and wiggly lines to quite heavy distortion is possible. And then I also find that the up and down positions have some pretty nice moments as well. So down gives us some stuff like this. And up, yeah, ranges from these lines to mild distortion to heavier tearing to pretty abstract black and white sync loss. So yeah, that's a quick overview of the rupture glitch circuit effects. Next I'm going to show you just a few comparisons of what it looks like on different displays. So the CRT, we've seen it on as the best, but we'll also see it on capture card. So this is one of these cheap easycap capture cards. This one has the UTV 007 chipset, which is one of the stronger ones for glitch, for interpreting glitch. And we'll also see it on something which doesn't handle glitch well. So this is one of these little car reverse monitors, this is pretty picky with the signal that it gets, so you'll see lots of dropouts when we try and display the output on this, just to give you some idea of how it will look depending on what you plug it into. So yeah, this is the comparison between the CRT television and the easycap capture card. And then finally, we're comparing the CRT capture of glitch with this reverse car small LCD display, which is a lot more picky with this thing. So you'll see that it's doesn't display quite as well as the CRT. A lot more dropouts occur on this one. Still captures some stuff though, so you can use this like directly into a projector or something like that. You just have to be more aware of the limits of what the circuit can handle.